Welcome. Thank you guys so much for coming on and being on the podcast. This is awesome. Tell me how you guys met. How did it all start?
Go ahead. You got the story on your end.
So,
Well, if you want the backup is to the story. At the time, I was going through a divorce. I wasn't divorced yet, but I was dating and I had my own place. And I had just mentioned to this lady that I knew that happened to be actually my ex-wife's former tennis partner. And Debbie she's Jewish, I'm not. And she's a little older than me. And I was just kind of joking with her. I just said, Debbie, I'm just really having a hard time, meeting genuine people. When you're doing the online dating thing, trying Bumble and all that stuff. And it just was not really my cup of tea. And just in those conversations with her, she kind of laughed. She said, well, I'll be the Jewish mother you never had. And so she said, she goes, I know a lot of people. She goes, I'll take this mission on. And so that's how I kind of got started. Debbie was, if you want to say, looking out for me. And then that transitions to Kari.
right. So it's a funny story. I was actually on my way to my attorney's office, and she was my divorce attorney from my previous marriage. But the reason I was on the way to her office is because I had a cabbie party and she bought some items. So I was delivering her cabbie items. And when I got to her office, his friend Debbie was there. And after the three of us were just talking for a little while, she looked at me and she's just like, wait a minute. She's like, who are you? Where did you come from? What do you do? What is your name? And so she and I started talking personally. And she said, oh my God, it was like an awareness she had. And she said, I have the perfect guy for you. And I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, that's what everybody says, right? And I'm thinking, okay, whatever. And she says, no. He's the nicest guy. She's like, he's got a couple kids, but he can afford his kids. So she looks him up on Facebook. She shows me his picture. She's like, will you talk to him? Will you talk to him? So she gets him on the phone right there in the moment. and she puts Mark on the phone with me, and Mark, would you say, you're like, I apologize. Debbie is the Jewish mother that I never had. And he said, can I call you tonight? And he did. That was July 2nd of 2018. And then after we talked that evening, he invited me on our first date, which was on July 4th, 2018. And so I know it's a great first date night, and every year we go back to the same restaurant and, and celebrate all over again. And every year we miss the fireworks, just like we did that night.
You guys are chatting away at the restaurant and just
we get lost.
Oh, that's wonderful. So wait, so you just decided to go out within the next day? Did you see a picture? You saw a picture of him?
I did, yeah. But for all, it was basically a blind date. Like, I had not met him in person. We only talked on the phone for about 30 minutes. I don't even know, maybe. And we went out on July 4th, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And after that, so you guys stayed at the restaurant and talked for a while, I guess?
Yeah, for a long time.
So Kari, do you have kids?
I have two girls, and now they are 14 and 16.
Okay. So you guys were merging each other's, merging families too.
Yes.
Well, that was kind of the joke. Kari's 7 years younger than me. I'm 56. And we first started dating. I said, I hope, you're okay with dating a guy that has car seats. And she's thinking they're my grandkids. And it's like, my kids now are 10 and 8. But at the time, they were 5 and 7.
Yeah, they were little.
They were young.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Look how reverse that is. That's interesting.
I know.
A little reversed.
Right?
Yeah.
So yes, now we're the blended family.
Yes.
Wow. And you're okay with it. You're like, I could do this. I've already done it. So, right.
Yeah, it's pretty natural for me, mothering, but they are boys and I have girls. So it's actually worked out really well.
Yeah. Okay. So after that first night, where did it go from there?
Well, the usual dating, I guess, routine for several weeks, months, whatever. And
I think, the thing, like, we first started dating, that was really that for both of us, I think that was just refreshing is we could go out on a date and we could shut the restaurants down without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And just really just, you know what, having just good conversation with each other and just laughing, having a good time. And the next thing you know, they're putting the tables away and, turning the lights off and it's time to go.
I think we have to go.
So, and that's when we just, realized and then as you kind of spend more time together, from there, it just, even today, here we are, we're what, 3 years on. And I can tell you that her and I have never exchanged an angry, vindictive word with each other in 3 years. I mean, we just get along like a house on fire.
Yeah.
And we respect each other and, and that just shows in everything that we do.
So like when things come up, because I'm sure there are some things that you do disagree on, right?
Yes.
I mean, you might not argue, you might not fight about it, but like when those things come up, how do you guys address those together?
We just ignore it.
Drink more wine. No.
Perfect solution. Perfect.
Like Mark said a few weeks ago, he said, this is the most mature. He said that this is the most mature he's ever been in a relationship. And part of that maturity, and me too, is that when something comes up like that, just being aware of how you're feeling and really thinking about what you're going to say before you even bring it up. Like, how it's like, you have to choose your battles. Is this worth arguing about? Or is it just me? Maybe it's my limitation. And so we've both been through this practice. I don't know, you're probably familiar with Self-Discovery Life Mastery from the Women's Executive Club. So we've been through the whole program through self-discovery. And it's helped us a lot to be reflective of ourselves. And then, when something it's like, okay, it needs to be said, then it's like, let's talk. And then we sit down and we have a conversation.
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't, and I think the other big thing too, and just in terms of you get, I think as we've gotten older in our lives, you become, that more mature and, you don't say things to the other person that are inflammatory. You're able to get through, the conversation. And sometimes, you have to come back and even revisit things later because you have to reflect on it a little bit, but it's never becomes, a personal attack, on the other one. And that doesn't put us in a position where you're in essence, damaging each other, for no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we did have a period of time where it was about 6 months after we started dating that I sort of felt like maybe I was more ready for a relationship than he was.
Really?
And that was just what I was feeling. And so we took a little break, and not long. I don't even know if it was 2 months.
It was like 3 weeks.
To him, it felt like 3 years, but I mean, it allowed us some space to really feel into how we really felt about each other and gain some perspective.
Yeah.
So we came back together.
It's so mature and so nice to see that you just the conversation and how you guys communicate is so refreshing and wonderful. And it's so needed. It's so needed in this world. But so did you guys do self-discovery together?
So I had been already started in that program when I met Mark. I had already been through a few workshops and some training. And I started talking to him about it. Originally, I invited him to take a workshop or two, and he went. But I was very aware at that point that he was doing it just to check the box. I like this girl, I better go to this workshop. Right? And that was true. And I could feel that, So he didn't really continue on at the same pace as I was continuing through the program. And that's sort of, I believe, as I became more aware and going through of myself, that's what sort of helped us to gain that perspective and the separation. And then it wasn't until I went to the relationship course by myself where I was hoping to go together, but it just didn't work out. And it worked out perfectly just the way it happened, because I went by myself and we actually reconnected through that course because there was homework in the relationship course. And as I was telling him about it on my drive home that first night, he said, why don't you come over and talk about it and we'll have a glass of wine? And I can't resist a good glass of wine. So, that's exactly when we reconnected.
Pretty big to, it's a lot of work to look at yourself and do
It
self.
is. It's scary.
Very
I'm not gonna
scary.
lie, it's frightening.
Yeah.
It is,
And then to do
yeah.
it together is like a whole other thing. You have to be very vulnerable. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of, even though you've only been together for 3 years, it's those 3 years have been gone from like 0 to 60 almost, like you've accelerated that so fast because of all this self-growth that you've done together.
Mhm.
You really like, okay, we're going to go into like the nitty gritty and just like lay it out on the table. And
I think that was, being part of it too, being a little bit, like, and I was married 20 years and just, kind of coming out of that relationship and, that we didn't really share that level of intimacy with each other. And, when Kari and I first got together, I mean, it was, what, it was just kind of, I think that you felt that both of us felt to the degree that you had to just, you had to put yourself out there
Mhm.
and expose yourself.
Mhm.
And if this person use that information to harm you when they were angry or anything like that, well then you would kind of know.
Mhm.
And so that's what's made our relationship, I think, as strong as it has been, is because we have both went there on some really deep personal things that
Mhm.
you probably you would keep to yourself normally, and because you're afraid.
Yeah.
And by sharing that with each other, whether it's intimacy wise or otherwise in our lives, that it's created that connection and that trust between us, because neither one of us has ever done anything to the other to damage that trust.
Mhm.
And I think that's really what's made our relationship as strong as it has been, and why it continues to grow.
Yeah. It's just the honesty of, no matter how vulnerable you're feeling or, afraid to express yourself, I make myself because he's my partner, and if he's the only person in the world, I want, him to know how I'm feeling. I don't want him guessing that, is it me? Is she mad at me or whatever? So yeah, you really, in a relationship, you have to make yourself vulnerable. You have to be okay with that, exposing yourself and being honest.
yeah, I mean, I just give you guys a lot of credit because it's a lot of space that you have to hold for the other person too.
Yes.
I mean, it's really being aware.
Mhm.
And,
It is.
it's a lot
And
of
deliberate.
Yeah.
Very deliberate.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's so awesome that you guys did that together. I think it's wonderful. I think it's really wonderful. It's so needed because that's one of those things that why I'm doing this podcast too, is to show that communication is so important and that you're able to have these beautiful, loving relationships. And it's just working on yourself and working with your partner and having that communication. That's key. And yeah,
I believe that until a person conquers the relationship that they have with themselves, they won't conquer a relationship outside of themselves. So that's the most important relationship. And that's what I'm teaching my girls, is like, focus on yourself and that relationship in you, because otherwise you're not going to find it out there somewhere, right? It's just going to be a reflection of who you are on the inside.
Yeah. You're gonna find the wrong thing on the outside if you don't.
Yeah, because if you're not aware of what you're feeling on the inside and whatever limitations you have, or whatever was passed down or something, something that happened with your mom or your dad, you carry that around with you and you're just not even aware of it until you become aware. Or until you've had so many bad, unhealthy relationships, right? And then you're like, wait a minute, this is a pattern.
Yeah, this is starting to click a little bit now.
Maybe it's me. I actually got to that point in my life. I was like, maybe it's me, right?
Yeah, no, it totally. It's like, it's always you, right? It's like what you reflect is what you get back, right?
Yeah.
Or what you put out is what you reflect, whatever. Yeah, the expression is. Yeah. So okay, so let's go back to your story for just a second. But when did you guys know that this was your person?
I felt like we kind of knew that first date. Remember? I
Yeah,
mean, we
yes.
had a sensation.
Yeah.
You know, I knew I liked the maturity, the mannerisms. We were we both, you know, it was stupid and silly, but you know, we went to look at the menu at the time. I was wearing glasses and we both had to put on the glasses, you know. And I don't know, he's obviously very mature and put together and successful. And you look, I had created a list of my ideals in a guy before I met Mark, and he just turned out to be every one of them. So
And I think that, you know, there was that experience and, you know, in the first, you know, several months of us dating. And then like Kari said that, you know, we had that period of time and it was like 3 weeks where, you know, 3 weeks or, you know, 4 weeks that things kind of cooled off a little bit. And it was when we reconnected, you know, over when the relationship course was going on. And then at that point in time, it was, you know, really just hit home that this is just not, you know, a dating relationship. This is really honestly the person that I want to be with. And that I know that she wants to be with me. And that it was really just time to be, you know, I guess that mature. And again, you know, being vulnerable in terms of, you know, all those things that go on in your life in terms of financially, all those things, letting all of those guards down and letting this person in and vice versa, you know, for her.
yeah.
And that's when we really, it just at that point started focusing on the building of our lives together and moving past just dating.
Did you think, Mark, did you think you were going to get divorced and then get remarried so quickly?
I was still married when we got divorced or when we first got together, but the divorce was in progress. And I was the one that started the whole process with the divorce in my former relationship. And honestly, it came down to a place in my life where I was, you know, you say that midlife crisis, but I looked around at my life and I said, you know, I have not married my soulmate. And how I reflected on this, my father went through the same thing. And then the woman that my father married in his second marriage, I mean, they were best friends. I mean, they were each other's person. And that's what kind of drove me. Here, Abby, I'm sorry. Abby, the dog's squeaking a toy.
Who wants to play?
So, you know, at that point in time, you know, when I looked at myself and my relationship and I just said, you know what, this is just not, you know, ideal for me. And I'm willing to take that chance in my life and believe that my soulmate is out there. And so you know, yeah, you had to go through that painful process of cutting that cord. And I believe for my ex-wife as well, that, you know, for her, there's a better person out there for her. You know, we had just been together for a long time and it just became habit. And it just, in the end, you know, it's the best thing for both of us. And I didn't have any idea. I prayed and I hoped that I wasn't, you know, going to wake up 65 and it's still dating, you know, and chasing women around, you know, like a lot of my friends are, because they could just, they can't get past it. And
I mean, that's a hard thing. I have to give you a lot of credit because after 20 years of marriage, it's kind of comfortable, right? You're in a comfortable, I mean, it doesn't sound like it was a terrible marriage or anything like that. It just sounds like it was comfortable, but yeah. Okay. All right, maybe we shouldn't talk about this.
Let's not talk about that.
I think that's pretty brave of you to decide to take that leap. I mean, it's a hard thing to do, especially having kids together and different things like that. And knowing that, you know, and having that faith that there's something more out there. Yeah. And you found Kari. When did the proposal happen? And how did the proposal happen?
Well, the proposal happened a year ago, June
21st, 2020. It was on Father's Day.
Well, we were up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And with the family, the kids, and over the previous, say, 2 months, I had asked her parents, you know, if they would be okay with me asking Kari to marry me. And I had bought the ring and both of her daughters had tried it on. Several of the girls at work that knew, you know, that were close to Kari, because Kari, you know, she came into work for the company that I own. And so we worked together. And so there was pretty much everybody had tried on the ring and seen the ring except for Kari at that point. And so we were going up to Western North Carolina for vacation. We had rented a house and her parents were with us and our kids. And, you know, I was going to do it at one of the parks that were there. I don't know if you ever heard of Chimney Rock. It's kind of it's a real neat park with a great view and things, and it overlooks the lake where Dirty Dancing, with Patrick Swayze. Anyway, long story short,
I mean,
so
everybody does
it
that
just
one,
what
yeah.
happened was on that Sunday we had just finished dinner, and we were there, and I just, I was just looking around and thought, what, our family's all here, and we were just there as a family. And at that point in time, it was something that I wanted to share with them in that moment.
Mhm.
And
Did you expect it, or did you?
I didn't. I'll tell you when I really thought you were going to propose is in Paris. I'm like, Paris, the Eiffel Tower. I'm like, everybody thought you were gonna propose. In fact, I came home and everybody was like, "Did you get a ring?" But everybody had me so hyped up. Oh my God, he's taking you to Paris. But yeah, it didn't happen. So I didn't really expect it this time, and I hadn't heard anything from anybody. I cannot believe that many people were able to keep a secret. I mean,
I like it, Mark. You surprised her like
Yep.
you threw her off the map or whatever,
especially on Father's Day. But it happened to be the 21st, which is the summer solstice, new beginnings. And then, we got married on February 21st of this year. So everything's on the 21st.
And the 4th of July.
And the 4th of July. Yeah.
So much fun. Fireworks. It's a nice holiday to have met. Yeah. Everybody's kind of celebrating for you.
Right? I agree.
Kari, when did you know that Mark was your person? I mean, I know you said like in the very beginning, but was there a point, I guess, in the relationship like that you were like, okay, we need to get married, this needs to happen, like he is my person?
It was mutual with what he said. After the relationship course and us coming back together, we really had that conversation, what do we want from our lives together? From that point, we moved in, we had the conversation about living with each other.
Okay.
So we moved in together. And we did that whole thing.
Because I was like, I feel like there was
there's a gap, right?
Yeah. I was like, there needs to be
the funny
something
part
else.
was that, it's kind of like, we got talking about moving in together. And then like the next day she's bringing her stuff over. And I remember going, I was kind of like thinking, wow, I was, this is not really what I was expecting. But then, but then it was kind of, at that point, I'm like, you feel that, all right, you can't go halfway in. And that was part of my issue before I was kind of like, it sounded like a great idea. And like, okay, we can move in together in 6 months, but it just, needed that little bit of a shove and then just to be able to let your guard down. And, like I say, I kept saying to myself, I knew that we really just were made for each other. And it was like, well, what are we waiting for here,
That makes more sense because I was like, I know something. I feel like something happened in between that, after the relationship course and between the engagement. I was like, there's got to be a.
So after the relationship course, we really combined our lives. He asked me to come and work with him, and I did, and I said yes. And then we moved in together. It's all happened that summer of, I guess, 2019. Yeah. So, but by the time school started with the kids, we were all under one roof. Yeah. So that was a big transition for my kids too, because I had to have the conversation with them. Like, are you guys okay with this? And how do you feel about it? Because their lives are going to be affected too, combining with another family,
How did they feel about it?
They love Mark. So they were like, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It can be a hard transition.
It is. Yeah. There's no doubt, it's challenging on many levels just to live with another person, but when you're combining your kids and all the personalities together, but it's been really harmonious. My girls they're just so much older than his boys that they take on more of like, they're just not even interested really. And then my oldest daughter's very nurturing, so she can babysit, and it's been really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good combination.
Yeah, for sure. 2 boys, 2 girls.
What's one of their favorite things that you love about each other? Who wants to go first?
Well, there's so many. I mean, I love Mark is a gentleman. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of gentlemen out there, but he's just always, a perfect gentleman. Doesn't let me get into the car without opening the door. I've had to learn to not reach for the door and open the door. He sort of had to train me a little bit because look, as women, we've become very independent and sort of like, oh, I don't need a guy, or I can do it myself, or, we were just sort of, I think our mothers sort of raised us to be independent like that. So it really took me some time to become more feminine and allow him to be the gentleman. And I absolutely I appreciate that about him. Aside from him being just a very kind, generous, loving individual. I mean, what's not to love about Mark, right? Everybody loves Mark.
We all love you,
Everybody.
Mark.
He's a good man, he's just a really good man.
It was one of the things the very first date was just I noticed about her was her eyes and her smile. And then it's just her passion. And and that Kari, no matter what we get into, it never becomes something where it's the blaming or the arguing. We're very just I think just able to connect in this way, and that's what we used to kind of do very early on. Was you could feel that energy between us, and it was a pull, and it was never a conflict. And Kari, very early on, she said, I don't want to be in a relationship that is a competition. And and that's something that we've just it's never been a competition between us, and it's always been about us. And so I love Kari's passion and her zest for life, and I love her smile and her eyes, and and I love just how she loves me and how she treats me. So she makes you it's when you talk about that masculine and feminine thing, she is the epitome of the feminine, and it allows me to be the masculine, and so things are in right order.
Right. Very important.
Thank you for sharing your love story with with me and the world now.
The world, it's out there.
It's so exciting, and it's really, really special. And it's amazing that in just a short amount of time, you guys, it seems like you guys have been together forever,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's really nice to see that growth and just how you guys, you're there for each other, you're in it with each other, and it's really special. It's really special to see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is good. Anything else? Oh.
We love talking about ourselves, so we do have a great story. It's always, it's nice to revisit, the path, because it feels good, and a lot has shifted since we first met. So it's only been 3 years, but it feels like you said, it feels like a much longer